Jungkook breaks down on stage after Jimin whispers something shocking. What secret tore them apart during BTS's final performance? Don't trust Taehyung, he knows about Busan. Jungkook froze mid-step, the roar of the crowd dissolving into a distant hum. The Seoul Dome's 80,000 lights faded into a blur as Jimin's breath ghosted past his ear, calm, steady, but laced with something darker than fear. And in that single, surgical sentence, Jimin didn't just plant a doubt, he detonated a time bomb. The beat of their final encore had just dropped, the screams of the army at their peak. Sweat traced silver down Jungkook's temple as his heart pounded, not from adrenaline but panic. His body moved on autopilot, muscle memory dragging him through the choreography, but his mind was sprinting somewhere far from the stage. Busan. The word itself rang like an alarm bell through his skull, not just a place, a graveyard of secrets, of a night that none of them ever spoke about, of blood, broken glass, and a pact sealed in trembling silence. Jimin had never mentioned it, not once, not even when Jungkook had cried in the dorm shower for 3 nights straight after they came back from the city. So why now, why here under the blinding lights in front of thousands with cameras rolling? Jungkook turned, barely catching his footing in the middle of a jump spin, and met Jimin's eyes. They were unreadable, dark, too calm, almost empty. And for the first time in years, Jungkook couldn't find his friend in them. The music surged toward the chorus, but his voice cracked as he brought the mic to his lips. He missed the cue. Hoseok glanced over, confused. Taehyung kept dancing, but his jaw was tight. Namjoon, ever the leader, subtly stepped forward to cover the gap in the formation. But Jungkook couldn't breathe. All the choreography training, the polished performance instincts, the emotional masks, it all collapsed like paper in a storm. The lights were too hot, his hands were shaking, and when the final note echoed through the dome, his knees buckled. Jimin caught him as always, but this time his grip was cold. The backstage corridor smelled like sweat and stage smoke, muffled voices echoing as the staff scrambled around them. Jungkook stumbled into the green room, ignoring the assistants who reached out to help. He slammed the door shut behind him, locked it, and turned to face Jimin. What did you mean? His voice was hoarse, nearly breaking. Why now? Jimin didn't answer immediately. He leaned against the wall, peeled off his in-ear monitor, and stared at the floor like it held the answer to a question he was afraid to ask. You needed to remember, he said finally. That night, Jungkook took a shaky step forward. We swore. I remember what we swore, Jimin snapped, his voice suddenly sharp. But someone broke it. Jungkook and Taehyung knows. Jungkook's mouth went dry. He remembered the rain on the pavement, the flashing red and blue lights, the scream that hadn't come from any of them, the silence afterward, the way they'd buried the truth beneath layers of smiles and music. Why would T? Because he found the phone, Jimin cut in, the one you thought you lost, the one from Busan. Jungkook sat down hard on the couch like his body couldn't bear the weight anymore. He remembered throwing it into the ocean. He remembered the cold water stealing it from his fingers. He remembered. You didn't throw it far enough, Jimin whispered. The room spun. Outside, the crowd was still chanting for an encore they'd never receive. The team was already calling it an unexpected technical emergency, but Jungkook knew the truth. Everything was unraveling and fast. They had 10 days before the world tour began. 10 days to find out what Taehyung really knew. 10 days before whatever was buried in Busan clawed its way to the surface. Jungkook wiped his eyes roughly, but the tears wouldn't stop. Not from pain, not even from fear, from the realization that he didn't know who he could trust anymore. Not even Jimin. Not even himself. You're lying, Jungkook growled, rising to his feet. You're lying to me, Jimin. Jimin didn't flinch. He stood perfectly still, backlit by the dressing room's harsh white lights, his face unreadable. Only his eyes betrayed something, regret maybe, or fear. I wish I was, he said, voice low. But I saw it, Jungkook, the lock screen, your old wallpaper, that picture of the 4 of us on the rooftop in Daegu, the phone's still alive. No, Jungkook muttered, packing now. His heart raced so violently he could hear it thumping in his ears. I threw it into the water, I stood there, I watched it sink, you were there. You think water stops everything? Jimin snapped. Phones have cloud backups, data leaks, and T's not stupid, he didn't just find it, he's been waiting. The words felt like daggers, each one hit a bruise that had never healed. And you didn't think to tell me before whispering it on stage in front of millions of people. Jimin clenched his jaw, because I didn't know he had it until tonight. Jungkook blinked. What? Jimin stepped forward. He came to me after rehearsal, said he wanted to talk. He had it in a sealed bag like it was evidence. He said it just washed up in a fisherman's net 2 weeks ago. He didn't say it outright, but the way he looked at me. What did he say? Jimin hesitated, then said, he asked me if I remembered what happened at the pier, and then he smiled like he already knew the answer. The blood drained from Jungkook's face. There had been a scream, a shove, water, blood, and silence. They never told anyone, not the managers, not the company, not the other members, just the 4 of them, 4 in the car, 3 walked back. And no one ever asked questions. Did Taehyung tell anyone else? I don't know, Jimin admitted, but if he did. The door burst open. Namjoon stood there, his face thunderous. We need to talk, all of us now. Jungkook and Jimin exchanged a glance. Where Taehyung? Jungkook asked. He's already in the room, Namjoon said, and he's waiting. They walked in silence, flanked by security who had no idea they weren't protecting idols tonight. They were walking alongside loaded weapons of memory, guilt, and unraveling secrets. When they entered the conference room, Taehyung was sitting with his legs crossed, sipping water like he hadn't just detonated their world. You're late, he said, eyes calm. Jungkook charged forward before anyone could stop him, grabbing Taehyung by the collar and slamming him into the wall. Where's the phone? Still alive, Taehyung said softly, not struggling, just like the truth. Jungkook's knuckles trembled, but Namjoon pulled him back. Stop it, we're not doing this like animals. Then how are we doing it? Jungkook barked. You want a press conference, a public confession, maybe a Netflix documentary. No one's going public, Taehyung said, adjusting his shirt as he stepped forward. Not yet, not unless you make me. Make you? Jimin laughed bitterly. You're threatening us now. I'm giving you a choice, Taehyung said. Either we talk about what really happened that night or I will. Namjoon slammed his hand on the table. Stop it, all of you. They all froze. Namjoon's voice was rarely loud. When it was, it meant something was breaking. We made a promise, he said, looking around the room. We buried that night because we thought it was the only way to survive it, but we were wrong. Hoseok leaned in, finally speaking for the first time. What's even on the phone? Taehyung looked at each of them. A video. Silence. A video of the pier, the fight, everything. No, Jungkook whispered. There was no video, there couldn't be, no one was filming, no one. But he trailed off, remembering. The girl. The girl in the hoodie who ran when the yelling started. He thought she was just scared. He never saw her face, never saw what she held in her hand. She'd been filming. The room spun again. Why do you still have it? Namjoon asked, voice tight. Because someone needs to decide what we do with it, Taehyung said, and because I don't trust any of you anymore. Jimin stepped closer. Then why tell us now? Taehyung's mask cracked just a little. Because I'm scared, he said. The words stunned the room. Taehyung never admitted fear. I've been carrying this around for weeks, he continued, thinking I could handle it, but I can't sleep, I can't eat. Every time I see a camera, I wonder if someone else already has it, and when I look at you guys, I don't see my brothers anymore, I see accomplices. Jungkook looked at him, something breaking inside. We weren't supposed to be accomplices. Taehyung looked up. We were supposed to be heroes. Silence. Until Yoongi finally spoke, quiet but lethal. So what now? Later that night, Jungkook sat alone on the hotel balcony, city lights dancing like fireflies. His phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. I know what you did, YK. He stared at the screen. YK. Yu Kyung. The girl. She hadn't run away that night. She'd filmed it. She'd never stopped watching. You need to come see this. Jimin's voice was sharp in Jungkook's ear, too sharp for 3:12 a.m. Jungkook didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the phone screen, the message still glowing like an open wound. I know what you did, YK. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, delete, block, call, but his body wouldn't move, he was cold. not from the wind rolling across the 24th floor balcony, but from something far older, something rotting beneath his skin. He hadn't heard that name in years. Jimin was pounding on the hotel door now, not knocking, pounding. "Open the damn door, Jungkook." He snapped out of it and yanked the door open. "She texted me," Jungkook said flatly. Jimin's face was pale. "Me too." They stood there for a beat, saying nothing, breathing each other's panic. Jungkook handed him the phone. Jimin's jaw clenched. "She signed it YK just like mine." "She never stopped watching," Jungkook said. Jimin nodded, and for once there was no sarcasm, no biting wit, just quiet, focused terror. "She wants something." Downstairs, the others were already waiting. Taehyung stood with his arms crossed, packing the carpet like a soldier awaiting war. Namjoon looked like he hadn't slept. Hoseok sat curled into the corner of the couch, clutching a throw pillow like it could anchor him. Yoongi was staring out the window, silent. Jungkook walked in, and no one spoke until he sat down. "She's back," Jimin said. "You Kyung." Taehyung's eyes snapped up. "Did she contact you too?" Jungkook's heart dropped. "She texted all of us." Namjoon nodded. "Different messages, same signature." Yoongi finally turned from the window. "Mine said, 'You thought the ocean would hide your sins, I am the tide.'" Taehyung laughed bitterly. "Poetic." "Mine just had a location," Hoseok murmured. "Busan, 11 p.m. tomorrow." Silence followed. Jungkook couldn't breathe. "She wants to meet us," he asked, "in Busan after all this time." "She's playing with us," Jimin said, eyes sharp. "She's always been playing with us, we were too blind to see it." "No," Namjoon said, "not playing, she's testing us." Yoongi nodded. "She has the video, doesn't she?" Taehyung didn't answer, his jaw flexed, his hand curling into a fist. "You knew she was alive," Jimin accused, stepping toward him, "didn't you?" "I suspected," Taehyung admitted quietly. "I didn't want to believe it." "You should have told us," Jimin snapped. "And do what?" Taehyung growled. "Start panicking early, look at us, we're falling apart already." Jungkook slammed his hand on the table. "Enough, we go to Busan, we face her." "Face what?" Yoongi snapped. "What if she's not alone? What if it's a setup? What if this is the moment it all explodes and our entire world burns?" "It already is burning," Jungkook yelled back. "We're just pretending it's still under control." Namjoon's voice cut through them all. "We go, but not as BTS, no security, no entourage, no cameras." Taehyung raised an eyebrow. "So what are we, just 6 men walking into a trap?" "No," Namjoon said, 6 ghosts returning to the scene of the crime. The next night, Busan greeted them with heavy clouds and biting wind. They arrived separately in black hoodies and sunglasses scattered across different trains and private cars. No one smiled. No one spoke more than necessary. The pier hadn't changed. The wooden planks still creaked beneath their feet. The waves still slammed into the rocks with mechanical fury. The rusted railings, the broken lamp that flickered and died every few seconds, it was all the same, frozen in time, waiting for them. Yoo Kyung stood at the edge, back to them, hair dancing in the wind like black silk. She wore a long trench coat and combat boots. There was no fear in her stance. Jungkook's breath caught in his throat. She turned slowly. She was beautiful now in a different way, sharper, leaner, colder. The innocence she once carried was gone, replaced by something heavier. "So," she said, "you came." None of them spoke. She smiled faintly. "It's strange seeing you all together, you look like a cover photo for guilt." "What do you want?" Jimin asked, voice taut. She pulled something from her coat pocket, a phone, old, cracked, familiar. Jungkook's knees almost gave out. "I assume you remember this," she said. "I thought about selling it, thought about uploading it anonymously, but where's the art in that?" "What do you want, Kyung?" Namjoon asked, stepping forward. She met his gaze. "The truth." "You know what happened," Jungkook said. "You saw it." "I saw some of it," she corrected, "but I want to hear your version. I want to hear which one of you pushed him." The air cracked like ice. "No one pushed him," Hoseok said quickly. "He slipped, there was yelling, but—" "I remember the blood," Yoo Kyung said. "I remember the scream, and I remember not calling the police because I thought you'd fix it, because you were BTS, because I believed in you." Tears welled in Jungkook's eyes. "We were kids. You were gods," she spat, "and you chose silence over justice." Jimin stepped forward trembling. Why now? Why wait all these years just to break us? Because I wanted to see if you'd become the men you always sang about, she said, voice cracking. Turns out you became exactly what I feared. She tossed the phone into the air, and Jungkook lunged for it instinctively. But it wasn't the real one. It shattered on the pier like a prop. Yoo Kyung smiled. I have the real one in a safe location, and I've made copies. Taehyung's face darkened. So you're blackmailing us. She tilted her head. I'm giving you one chance to confess, publicly, on your own terms before I take it into my hands. Confess what? Yoongi shouted. That we were scared, that we tried to help and failed, that the person who actually hurt that boy disappeared before we could. He stopped. Everyone turned to him. What did you say? Yoo Kyung whispered. Yoongi swallowed. There was a fourth person on the pier that night, someone none of you ever saw. Jimin's voice dropped. What are you talking about? I saw them, Yoongi said. I saw someone else run past when it all happened, but I never said anything. I thought it was just my mind breaking from the shock. Jungkook's heart was pounding now, so loud it was deafening. Yoo Kyung stared at him. So maybe, she said softly, you're not the only ones who have been keeping secrets. And then from the shadows behind the pier, a figure stepped out. Not a stranger. Not a ghost. Him. The boy they thought was dead. Taehyung took a full step backward. Jungkook's breath hitched in his throat. Jimin swore under his breath. The boy standing in front of them had a scar cutting through his left eyebrow, a faint limp in his right leg, and a gaze so raw it felt like it had been forged in fire. His presence tore through the group like a grenade. His name had not been spoken in years, not even in whispered nightmares, because to say his name was to admit they had let him die. Donghyun. I thought I'd give you the courtesy of a face-to-face before you start crafting your little redemption story, he said, voice hoarse but steady. No one moved. Jungkook's mouth was dry. You were gone, there was blood. There was a rock under the railing, Donghyun interrupted, pointing toward the spot where the ocean met jagged stone. You didn't see it, neither did I. My head hit it when I went under. Jimin staggered slightly. We thought. That you killed me? Donghyun laughed, a bitter, cutting sound. Yeah, I figured. That's why none of you ever came looking. That's why you went on singing about truth and love and brotherhood while I was in a hospital bed learning how to walk again. Taehyung's voice was cold. Why didn't you come forward? Why didn't you? Donghyun shot back. Why didn't any of you call the police? Why didn't you help me when I was bleeding on that dock like a discarded memory? Because we were scared, Jungkook roared. We thought you were dead and we panicked. We were 17 and we thought our lives were over. Donghyun's face contorted. You mean your careers were over? Namjoon stepped between them. That night wasn't simple. There was yelling. There was chaos. You threatened to leak our demo tapes, remember? You came at Jimin with a bottle. I was drunk, Donghyun shouted. I was angry because your label dumped me like trash after you debuted. You think I wasn't hurt. You think I didn't bleed for those songs too. Don't pretend you were the victim, Jimin said, eyes narrowing. You blackmailed us, you followed us to Busan and ambushed us. You knew we were breaking, you wanted to watch us fall apart. I wanted to be seen, Donghyun said quietly. You erased me. The silence that followed was suffocating. Yoo Kyung finally stepped forward, her expression unreadable. I found him 3 months ago, living under a different name in a rehab center outside Incheon. No ID, no visitors. He saw my face and almost passed out, said he thought I was part of the lie too. Jungkook closed his eyes, chest heaving. Yoongi lit a cigarette with trembling hands. So what now? Donghyun looked around at them. I've been watching the 6 of you lie your way through award shows and farewell tour. I watched the whole world cry for you while I couldn't even afford physical therapy. We didn't know you were alive, Hoseok said, his voice cracking. If we had God, Donghyun, if we had known. Don't, Donghyun cut in. Don't beg for forgiveness just because the cameras aren't rolling right now. He pulled a USB drive from his pocket. This has the full footage. Yoo Kyung's video, my medical records, the texts from Jimin threatening to keep me quiet, and Taehyung's voicemail from the day after. Jimin's mouth dropped open. I never. Oh, but you did, Donghyun's eyes darkened. I kept everything because I knew this day would come. Taehyung stepped forward. If you had all this, why wait? Donghyun stared him down. Because I wanted to see if any of you would ever confess on your own, if even one of you had the guts to speak the truth without a gun to your head, but instead you all just smiled prettier, sold more albums, cried on stage like you were the ones who lost something. Because we did lose something, Jungkook shouted, his voice breaking, we lost ourselves. Donghyun tilted his head, then maybe you deserve to burn. The silence that followed was worse than the shouting. Yoo Kyung crossed her arms. I told Donghyun we could release the video during the Tokyo press conference next week, or maybe at the final Seoul show, go out with a bang, right? No, Namjoon said firmly, let me speak first, one last time, not as a leader, not as a performer, as a man. Jimin looked at him, eyes narrowed, you think you can talk your way out of this? I'm not trying to escape it, Namjoon said, voice heavy, I'm trying to own it. Donghyun blinked, you're going to confess. I am, Namjoon said. Everyone stared. He walked toward Donghyun, eyes locked with his, but on one condition. Donghyun's lip curled, you're not in a position to make demands. Namjoon didn't blink, then make it a request, let me tell it my way, not as some PR statement, not in a courtroom, I want one final stage, just me, one mic, one spotlight, no fanfare, just truth. Jungkook grabbed Namjoon's arm, you're going to destroy us. We already destroyed ourselves, Namjoon said quietly. We just didn't realize it until tonight. Taehyung stepped back, shaking his head. I'm not doing this, I didn't sign up to be crucified on a nostalgia tour. You already were, Donghyun said coldly, you just didn't feel the nails. Yoo Kyung slipped her phone out, typing something. You have 3 days, after that we drop everything. She looked up at Jungkook, you always sang about facing yourself, let's see if you meant it. And then she walked away, Donghyun following behind her, disappearing into the fog like ghosts returning to the sea. The 6 of them stood in silence, the wind howling through the pier. No music. No cheers. Only the sound of 6 hearts finally breaking at once. 3 days, Namjoon said. His voice echoed through the empty hotel suite like a death sentence. No one spoke. The room, once pristine and filled with the quiet elegance of luxury, now looked like the aftermath of a war zone. Water bottles toppled, curtains half-drawn, ashtray overflowing. A tension hung in the air thick enough to choke on. Jungkook stood by the window, staring out at the endless sea of Busan's nightscape. His reflection trembled in the glass. We can't let him do this, Jimin muttered, packing like a lion in a cage. A public confession, you're handing our heads on a plate. Namjoon sat calmly in the armchair, elbows on his knees, fingers interlaced. No one's forcing you to join me. That's not the point, Taehyung snapped from across the room. If you confess, it drags all of us down. There is no version of this where you go solo into the fire and we walk away clean. Yoongi took a deep drag from his cigarette, the glow briefly illuminating the dark circles under his eyes. Maybe that's the point. Taehyung turned on him. Don't start with your poetic self-destruction crap, Haeyoung. Hoseok, usually the peacemaker, was shaking in the corner. He hadn't said a word in hours. Namjoon's voice dropped to a near whisper. We were never clean, T. We survived, yes, but we didn't walk away. Jungkook finally turned. His eyes were glassy, but his voice was sharp. What exactly do you plan to say, Haeyoung? Hello world, we nearly killed a boy and covered it up while we raked in billions and broke records. I'm going to say the truth, Namjoon answered, eyes locked with his, even if it ends everything. Jimin scoffed, so that's it, burn down a decade for your personal absolution. Namjoon didn't flinch, if that's the price I'll pay it. Taehyung laughed bitterly, you're not a hero, Haeyoung, don't try to make this into a noble sacrifice. You're not doing this for Donghyun, you're doing it because you hate who you've become. Silence. And then without looking up, Namjoon whispered, maybe I do. Jungkook's chest tightened. He remembered it that night, not in full but in flashes, Donghyun screaming, Jimin pushing him back, a bottle in his hand, someone slipping, blood, water, the crack of a skull, and their own voices, panicked, young, shattered. He looked at Jimin, what did you say in the voicemail? Jimin blinked, what? Donghyun said you left a voicemail. Jimin looked down, his voice was faint. I don't remember, I was drunk. After everything I called him that night, I said stupid things, I thought he'd never hear it. Taehyung sneered, you thought he was dead but you still called him, that's twisted. I didn't know what else to do, Jimin snapped. You think I wanted to carry this for 10 years? You think I wanted to smile in front of cameras and fans knowing every bit of their love was built on a goddamn lie? Yoongi stubbed his cigarette out hard. None of us wanted this, but we made our choices. Hoseok finally spoke, voice trembling. Do we even know the full truth? Everyone looked at him. What if we got it wrong? What if we've spent years blaming ourselves, hating ourselves, covering it up, when none of it was what we thought? Taehyung rolled his eyes. The man nearly died, what's wrong about that? But did we do it, Hoseok whispered, or did someone else push him? Yoongi stared at the floor. I told you, I saw someone run, there was someone else, a fourth shadow. Namjoon leaned forward, describe them. I couldn't, it was dark, they were small, fast, hoodie over their head, could have been a fan, a staff member, hell, even Kyung. What if she's not who we think she is, Jungkook said suddenly. Everyone turned to him. Jungkook's voice was lower now, haunted. What if she did film us not to protect Donghyun but to blackmail us from the start? What if she followed us that night for a reason? Taehyung frowned, what are you suggesting? I'm saying, Jungkook said, eyes narrowing, we've been looking at this as a mistake for 10 years, but maybe it was a setup. A beat of silence. Then Jimin muttered, you're being paranoid. Am I? Jungkook said, stepping forward. She found Donghyun, she has the footage, she's coordinated the blackmail, she's the one pulling the strings. Namjoon's face darkened. Even if that's true, it doesn't erase what we did. No, Jungkook said, but it changes what we say next. Yoongi sat up straighter. We don't confess guilt, we tell the story as we remember it, all of it, every angle, every doubt, every hole. Jimin nodded slowly, no more hiding, but no more martyrdom either. Taehyung's jaw tightened, this is a suicide mission. Namjoon stood, then I'll go first. The press room was booked anonymously. A single podium, a single mic, no screens, no logos, no schedule. The room was dim, almost sacred in its simplicity. Jungkook stood backstage, heart pounding. He could hear the faint sound of journalists murmuring on the other side of the curtain. No one knew who was speaking today, just that someone from that group had something important to say. Namjoon stood in silence beside him, head bowed, breathing steadily. You still sure about this? Jungkook asked. Namjoon looked up calm. Always. And then he stepped out. The room erupted in flashes, but Namjoon didn't flinch. He stood at the mic, hands folded, expression unreadable. My name is Kim Namjoon, you may know me as RM. A breath. I have carried a secret for a decade, one that involves not just me but people I love, people you love. I won't speak for them, I'll speak for myself. Jungkook watched from behind the curtain as Namjoon began unraveling the past, not with drama, not with excuses, but with brutal, terrifying honesty. About Busan. About the pier. About Donghyun. And about the pain that came after. No one interrupted, no one moved, the press forgot to blink. And then, just as Namjoon reached the part about the shadow, about the unknown figure that might have been the one to actually push Donghyun, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. It buzzed again and again. He finally glanced down mid-sentence. And froze. His eyes widened. Jungkook saw it from backstage, the blood draining from his face, the trembling in his hands. Namjoon stepped back from the mic. He turned toward the curtain and locked eyes with Jungkook. She released the video, he whispered. Jungkook's chest collapsed. It's online. Thousands of flashing cameras burst into chaos. But Namjoon was no longer there. He was already running. The moment Namjoon vanished from the stage, the world shifted. Panic erupted in the press room, reporters screaming, cameras flashing like lightning, dozens of voices barking questions into chaos. Jungkook shoved through the narrow hallway backstage, heart pounding, mouth dry, phone already vibrating in his hand like it had been possessed. He didn't need to unlock it. The notifications were already there. Trending globally in less than 3 minutes. BTS confession. The Busan video. RM truth speech interrupted. Who pushed Donghyun? Scandal video footage. Jimin was waiting outside the venue, packing furiously as fans gathered in the distance like sharks catching the scent of blood. She actually did it, he said when he saw Jungkook. Where Namjoon? He ran. I tried to follow him, but Jimin's voice cracked. He looked like he saw death itself. Taehyung's voice rang from behind them. You need to see this. They followed him to a black van parked in the alley. Hoseok and Yoongi were already inside, pale, quiet. Yoongi was holding a tablet, streaming a mirror of what millions were now watching all over the world. The footage was grainy, dark but real. It started with the dock. Their voices, young, frantic, cut through the ambient buzz of the ocean, Jimin shouting, Donghyun slurring something inaudible, a glint of broken glass, Jungkook's voice rising, shaking. Then the camera tilted, catching silhouettes distorted and wild. Then came the sound. A scream. The splash. Someone running. And finally, the most haunting image of all, Donghyun's body disappearing beneath the black water. The video ended with Yoo Kyung's breath fast and uneven. Her voice was barely a whisper behind the lens. They didn't even look back. Jungkook's stomach dropped. That's not how it happened. Not all of it, Yoongi agreed, but it doesn't matter, that's the story now. Taehyung rubbed his face. It's already gone viral, every outlet, every fan forum, army is imploding. She edited it, Jimin said, staring at the screen. You can tell the running figure, she cuts the frame before you can even see the shape, on purpose. Yoongi's jaw clenched. She doesn't care about truth, she wants revenge. Where Namjoon? Hoseok asked again, eyes wide. We have to find him before. A loud knock slammed against the van door. A staff member appeared, breathless, frantic. You need to come upstairs now. What is it? Jungkook asked. The man hesitated. There's a live stream. They didn't ask from who, they already knew. The room upstairs was quiet, sterile, just a monitor wired into the venue's media control panel. The screen flickered and then Yoo Kyung's face appeared. She sat in a darkened room, no makeup, no theatrics, just a soft light glowing above her head, casting sharp shadows over her eyes. Hello, she said, voice calm, almost fragile. You've all seen the video by now, but what you haven't seen is the rest of the story. Behind her, Donghyun stepped into frame. Still silent. Still limping. Still furious. You've heard their voices, Yoo Kyung said. You've read their lyrics, you've cried over their farewells, but you never knew what they buried 10 years ago. Donghyun sat down beside her. I loved them, he said. They were my brothers, I trusted them with my life. Yoo Kyung turned to him. Tell them what happened after. Donghyun looked directly into the camera. I woke up in a drainage pipe, barely breathing, my head split open. I dragged myself to a road and collapsed. It took me 6 months to speak again. I lost my name, my face, my voice. Jimin looked away from the screen, jaw clenched. Jungkook couldn't move. You know what I got while they released platinum albums? Donghyun continued. Silence, no calls, no searches, just erasure. You left, Jungkook muttered. You ran away, you didn't even tell anyone you were alive. On screen, Yoo Kyung's eyes glittered, because we were waiting. Waiting for what? Yoongi whispered. And then she said it. For them to come clean. The feed cut out. And in its place a countdown appeared. 72 hours. Until the full video release. Unedited, uncensored. With names, with timestamps, with blood. Jungkook sank to his knees. Jimin started yelling wild, incoherent rage. Kicking a chair across the room, knocking over the monitor, shouting curses that no longer meant anything. Taehyung stood perfectly still, fists trembling, lips bloodless. Yoongi turned to Jungkook. We have 3 days. Jungkook looked up. 3 days to do what? Yoongi's voice was soft, hollow. To survive it. Meanwhile, Namjoon stood alone on the Han River Bridge, phone in his hand, breath fogging in the night air. He rewatched the video in silence. And then his phone rang. No caller ID. He answered. A voice familiar, male, calm, spoke. You think Kyung's the enemy, you haven't met the real one yet. Namjoon's eyes widened. Who is this? A soft chuckle. You're finally getting close, but not close enough. And the line went dead. Far across the city, a woman watched from a surveillance screen. Her face was hidden in the glow of a dozen monitors. Behind her, a wall of files. Photographs. Charts. Connections. At the center, BTS. And below that, circled in red. The pier incident was stage 1. They were never supposed to survive it. Namjoon stood motionless on the bridge, wind biting through his coat, the echo of the mysterious voice still ringing in his ears. They were never supposed to survive it. It wasn't just a message, it was a revelation. The incident had never been an accident, not just Donghyun's fall, not just their silence. There had been something else, something deeper, something engineered. He dialed the only number that made sense. Jungkook answered on the second ring. I need you to get everyone in one room, Namjoon said. Now, not later, now. What's wrong? Jungkook asked, his voice still strained from shouting, from breaking. Namjoon took a breath. I think we're all being played. The suite smelled like sweat and stress. The tension in the air was so dense it felt like someone had poured gasoline into the carpet and was waiting for a spark. Jimin was leaning against the wall, eyes bloodshot, biting the inside of his cheek hard enough to bleed. Hoseok sat on the edge of the bed, face blank, hands twitching. Taehyung paced, jaw clenched tight. Yoongi was silent in the far corner, tapping his pen against his leg in erratic rhythm. Jungkook stood by the minibar, arms folded, not drinking, just needing something to do with his hands. Namjoon walked in and didn't bother sitting. I got a call after the video dropped. No caller ID, said Kyung isn't the real enemy, said stage 1 was the pier, said we were never meant to survive it. Jimin scoffed, what the hell does that even mean? Namjoon's voice didn't waver. It means we weren't just in the wrong place at the wrong time, we were put there. You think it was a setup? Taehyung asked, disbelief in his voice. Namjoon nodded, not just Kyung, someone else, someone bigger. Yoongi finally spoke, someone who had something to gain from us falling. Who? Jungkook asked, who would want to ruin BTS? Back then we weren't even a threat. Namjoon looked at each of them. That's the point, we were just becoming one. That year 2015 we were gaining momentum, we weren't rookies anymore, the industry was starting to feel it. Yoongi's eyes narrowed, you're saying another company. Namjoon hesitated, or someone inside ours. That hit like a hammer. Jimin straightened up, no way, you're talking about Hybe, you're talking about Bang PD, that's insane. Namjoon's expression didn't budge. He wasn't at the pier, but someone from the team was, someone who disappeared right after. Taehyung crossed his arms. Who? Kim Dae-hyun. The name hit the room like a gunshot. He had been a junior producer, mid-level, quiet, always in the shadows. He worked with them on early DMOS mixed vocals, shadowed Bang PD sometimes, took notes, booked studio times, harmless, forgettable. Until he was. Wait, Hoseok said slowly, didn't he leave the company right after Busan? Namjoon nodded, 2 weeks after, no announcement, no reason. Jimin looked uneasy, and we never asked why. Because we were too busy keeping our own secrets, Jungkook muttered. Yoongi stood up, what's his connection to Kyung? Namjoon pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, turned the screen around. A grainy photo from a cafe security camera. Kim Dae-hyun. Sitting across from Yoo Kyung. Just 2 weeks before the video leaked. She didn't find Donghyun by accident, Namjoon said, she was led to him. Jesus Christ, Taehyung breathed. She's not orchestrating this alone, Namjoon continued. Someone's feeding her, funding her, helping her build this narrative. Why? Jimin asked. Why go through all this, the blackmail, the footage, the countdown, the livestream, why now? Namjoon hesitated, then said, because there's something else on that footage, something we haven't seen yet. Yoongi's head turned, she's edited everything we've seen so far. She's holding something back, Namjoon said, and whatever it is, it's not about Donghyun, it's about us. Or one of us, Jungkook added darkly. That silence was louder than any scream. They were no longer united. Not fully. Not after everything. Jimin looked at Jungkook, you still think Kyung planned this from the beginning? Jungkook didn't blink, she's been playing a long game, that much is obvious, but someone else is pulling the strings. Yoongi's voice was cold, then were puppets dancing while they tighten the noose. Namjoon exhaled slowly, not anymore. Taehyung's eyes narrowed, what are you planning? Namjoon met his gaze, we stop running, we dig, we find the original footage, the uncut version, if she has it, we take it, if she doesn't, we find who does. How? Jimin asked. Namjoon turned to Jungkook. By going back to the beginning. Jungkook paled, Busan. Namjoon nodded. There's something we missed, something hidden, someone there that night who saw more than we did. Yoongi clenched his jaw, and if we find it. Namjoon's voice dropped, then we burn their house down before they burn ours. Later that night, Jungkook found himself alone in the hallway, leaning against the wall. He stared at a photo on his phone, the last group picture before the Busan show. 7 boys. Smiling. Holy. And now. Fragments. His phone buzzed. Another message. From an encrypted number. You're close, but someone among you already knows the truth. The final betrayal came from inside. He stared at it. Read it again. And again. Then he looked up as a figure approached. Jimin. Face tight, eyes unreadable. You okay? Jimin asked. Jungkook looked down at his phone, then back at Jimin. I don't know, he said softly, do you? Jimin tilted his head. Why do you sound like you're accusing me? Jungkook didn't answer. He just walked past him, cold and silent. Jimin turned slowly, his jaw tightening. And as the elevator doors closed behind Jungkook, a shadow stepped out from around the corner, watching them both. Smiling. The game was far from over. The train to Busan cut through the night like a blade, sleek, fast, and utterly silent except for the low hum beneath their feet. Inside the private compartment, none of the 6 spoke for the first hour. There were no jokes, no idle chatter, no music, just the breathing of 6 men carrying a truth too heavy for words. Jungkook sat by the window, head leaning against the glass, staring into the endless dark. In his lap was the burner phone that had delivered the last anonymous message. He hadn't told the others about it, not yet. Someone among you already knows the truth. The final betrayal came from inside. He didn't need names, he only needed time, and Busan was where it would all unravel. Jimin sat across from him, arms folded, eyes half closed, but Jungkook knew he wasn't asleep. Taehyung was scrolling through old voice notes in his phone, headphones in, face emotionless. Hoseok was rubbing his temples. Yoongi was sketching something on a pad, sharp lines and jagged shadows. Namjoon stood near the door, eyes scanning the horizon like they were heading into enemy territory. Why aren't we taking security with us? Hoseok asked finally, his voice low. Because we need to see what they don't want us to see, Namjoon replied, and security draws eyes. Eyes are already on us, Jimin muttered. The whole damn world is watching. Taehyung pulled out an earbud. Good, let them watch. Jungkook turned to Namjoon. You said there's something in Busan we missed. What exactly are we looking for? Namjoon sat down. I've been going through everything. Fan footage, backstage logs, even surveillance records from the Port Authority. And Yoongi asked. There was a car parked on the pier that night, registered to a shell company. It arrived 20 minutes before us, left 2 minutes after Donghyun disappeared. Jimin's voice sharpened. Whose name on the company? Namjoon stared at him. That's the thing, no direct name but the listed contact on the registration. He slid his phone across the table. They all leaned in. Jungkook felt the air leave his lungs. You Kyung's father? Taehyung asked, disbelief washing over his face. Namjoon nodded. He worked for a rival agency. He was fired 5 months before the incident, quietly, no press. And he just happened to be at the pier that night. Yoongi's voice was thick with sarcasm. Bullshit. No, Namjoon said, it's a setup, and we walked right into it. Jimin exhaled slowly. So, you're saying her father orchestrated the whole thing? I'm saying we were pawns in something bigger, and now Kyung's finishing what he started. Taehyung rubbed his face. What kind of father uses his daughter like that? Jungkook looked out the window again, one who wanted revenge. The pier hadn't changed. It still smelled of salt, rust, and memory. They stepped off the train in silence, avoiding attention with masks and hats, taking back alleys to reach the same wooden planks where their world had shattered. Namjoon stood where Donghyun had fallen, looking down at the water. It was here, he said. The car was parked just beyond the containers. Yoongi walked toward the shadows, flashlight in hand. Let's see if there's anything left. They split up, scanning the area. Jungkook stayed behind, walking slowly along the edge, every footstep echoed with a memory. Donghyun yelling. Jimin screaming. Blood on the wood. The splash. He closed his eyes, it was louder now, almost as if he could hear it. Footsteps. But not his. He turned sharply. Nothing. Then a voice behind him. You shouldn't have come back. He spun around. It was her. Yoo Kyung. No cameras, no entourage, just her, standing in the same place where she'd once hidden behind a phone and recorded their descent into darkness. You've been watching us, Jungkook said. She smiled, always. You lied, he said. You said you stumbled on Donghyun, that it was fate. Doesn't matter now. It does, he snapped, because if this was never about justice, then what the hell was it about? She took a step closer. Do you really want to know? Jungkook nodded. Yoo Kyung's eyes gleamed in the moonlight. My father didn't just get fired, he was destroyed, blacklisted, after your company leaked his contract dispute to the press. You think you were victims, he was one before any of you. He used us, Jungkook's voice cracked, he used you. And you used Donghyun, she whispered, don't pretend you're better. We didn't push him, Jungkook said. No, she agreed, but one of you watched him fall and didn't stop it. Jungkook froze, what do you mean? She reached into her coat, pulled out a flash drive. The original video, uncut, not edited, not stitched together, this one shows everything. Jungkook hesitated, why are you giving it to me? She stepped closer, because I want you to be the one who sees it first, and because maybe deep down I still wanted you to save yourself. Why me? He asked, voice barely a whisper. She looked at him for a long moment. You were the only one who looked back. Then she disappeared into the night. In the hotel room, they gathered around a laptop. No one spoke, not even Yoongi. Jungkook inserted the flash drive. The video began. Same night, same shadows, same chaos. But then, a new angle. A second camera. And there, clear as day, was a figure standing back while Donghyun dangled off the edge. Not helping. Not screaming. Just watching. Jungkook's heart stopped. Jimin stood slowly pale. No, he whispered, no, that's not. It's you, Namjoon said, voice hollow. Jimin stepped back, I don't remember that. You didn't help him, Hoseok whispered, you let him fall. I was scared, Jimin shouted, you don't know what it felt like, I froze. Yoongi stood shaking, we all froze, but you were closest to him, you could have grabbed him. Then why didn't you? Jimin snapped back, eyes wild. Why are you all looking at me like I murdered him? Because you were right there, Jungkook roared, and you did nothing. Jimin looked around the room, his brothers, his past, his future, all staring at him like he was something rotting. Then he whispered. I didn't know he'd survive. Silence. Crushing. Namjoon sat down, he looked like he'd aged 10 years in a minute. Taehyung didn't even speak. Yoongi walked out. Jungkook stared at the screen. The final frame showed Jimin turning away, his face twisted in fear, in guilt, in something darker. They had their answer. But the truth didn't set them free. It broke them. Outside, Yoo Kyung watched from a distance. Her phone buzzed, a new message from a number she didn't recognize. Good work. Stage 3 begins now. She stared at it. And smiled. The game had always been bigger than revenge. This wasn't just about the past. It was about destroying the future. The suite was silent but not empty. It felt like a morgue, souls still lingering where something had died. Jimin hadn't moved in 10 minutes. He sat on the floor, legs crossed, head in his hands. The laptop still glowed beside him, looping the final frame of the video over and over like a taunt. His breath was shallow, broken. He couldn't lift his eyes to meet anyone else. Jungkook stood by the wall, fists clenched so tight his knuckles were white. Yoongi hadn't come back since storming out. Hoseok sat slumped against the dresser, expression blank. Namjoon leaned on the window frame, staring at the city like it might answer something. And Taehyung hadn't said a single word since the video ended. Then Jungkook spoke, voice low and sharp. So it was you. Jimin didn't reply. You were the closest, Jungkook said again. We thought it was all of us, we thought it was our mistake, but it was you, you froze, you watched him fall. I was 17, Jimin whispered. So were we, Jungkook's voice cracked, finally breaking, but we didn't watch. Jimin finally lifted his head, his eyes were bloodshot. Raw, you think I haven't played that night in my head a million times? You think I don't wake up every night thinking maybe, just maybe, I could have saved him? Then why didn't you tell us? Namjoon asked, his voice cold now. All these years, we lived with the guilt together, but you were the only one who knew. I didn't know, Jimin snapped, rising to his feet. I swear, it wasn't until Kyung showed me the footage last year that I saw what happened. I had blocked it out. My brain, my mind, it fractured that night. Taehyung spoke at last. You're lying. Jimin turned to him, stunned. What? You're not broken, Jimin, Taehyung said, voice flat, emotionless. You're careful, always calculating. You knew, you just didn't care. Jimin's face twisted. Screw you. No, Taehyung said, stepping closer. Screw you, you let us carry your sin, you watched us spiral, you watched Jungkook cry for nights, Namjoon nearly quit music, Yoongi drown in pills. Stop, Jimin whispered. And you sat there writing lyrics about truth untold. What the hell were you telling? I said stop, Jimin screamed. Jungkook moved so fast no one saw it coming. 1 second he was across the room, the next he had Jimin pinned to the wall by the collar. You watched him fall, Jungkook hissed. You watched him fall. Jimin didn't fight, then hit me. Jungkook's jaw clenched. Hit me, Jimin said again, voice cracking. Isn't that what you want? Isn't that what you've wanted for 10 years? Namjoon stepped forward. Jungkook. But Jungkook didn't hit him. He dropped his hands and took a step back, tears stinging his eyes. You don't get to ask for mercy now, he whispered. Jimin slid down the wall, broken. Then what do I do? Tell the world I killed someone, say I let a friend drown and covered it up, say I danced for 10 years on top of his blood. What do I do, Jungkook? Namjoon answered, voice hoarse. You tell the truth, finally, fully. Jimin laughed bitterly, still crying. You think they'll forgive me, the fans, the world? No, Yoongi said, stepping back into the room like a ghost. They won't. Everyone turned to him, his eyes were red but clear. Not all sins deserve forgiveness, Yoongi said, but that doesn't mean they don't deserve air. Jimin looked up at him, shattered. Then what happens after? Yoongi looked around the room. I don't know, maybe we fall, maybe we're erased, maybe we spend the rest of our lives as a cautionary tale. Taehyung scoffed, great, so let's just set fire to everything we built. No, Yoongi said, let's finally own what we really built, not the songs, not the awards, not the stadiums, the lie. Namjoon nodded slowly. We release it ourselves, the original footage, a full confession, no edits, no PR, no press handlers. Hoseok spoke for the first time in a long time. We'll be crucified. Namjoon met his gaze. Then at least we won't be cowards. Jungkook looked down at Jimin. You want to fix this? Start there, speak first, say his name, say what you saw, say what you didn't do. Jimin closed his eyes, then nodded. The next morning they gathered in the hotel conference room. The lights were dim, the cameras were theirs, no crew, no labels, just them. Jimin sat alone in the chair in front of the camera. He looked fragile, but something else too. Ready. The red light blinked on. He stared straight into the lens. My name is Park Jimin. A pause. And 10 years ago, I watched someone fall and did nothing. The confession hit the internet within the hour. No filters. No excuses. Just a man telling a truth the world never expected to hear. Army was divided within seconds. Some cried, some screamed, some called for cancellations, some offered prayers, others scrolled in silence, unable to process the weight of what had just been dropped into the world. Then came the response. Not from the fans, but from her. Yoo Kyung uploaded a new video. Short 1 minute. A simple message. You've owned your sin, good. She smiled. Now it's their turn. The screen cut to black. Then a line of text. Stage 4, the ones who made it possible. Hybe Bang Si Hyuk, and the cover-up they thought would never surface. The final image was a still photo from 2015. A conference room. Papers on the desk. On one of them, a file folder labeled Donghyun Damage Control. Jungkook whispered the words as they faded from the screen. They knew. Namjoon stood beside him. They always knew. The company building loomed like a monument to a lie. BTS had stood inside its glass walls hundreds of times, shaking hands, filming content, crying with joy, recording pain into art. It had been their home, their cathedral, their prison. Now it was something else entirely. A crime scene. The six of them, Namjoon, Jungkook, Jimin, Yoongi, Hoseok, and Taehyung, walked through the front doors without security, without schedule, without smiles. Staff members stared but didn't stop them. Some stepped aside. Some looked away, some looked afraid. They headed straight to the 14th floor, the executive level, where the people who had built the empire worked, where Bang Si-hyuk had once welcomed them as boys and shaped them into gods. Namjoon didn't knock when he entered the boardroom. Bang PD was there. So were the company lawyers. So were three unfamiliar men with sharp suits and colder eyes, PR fixers probably, damage control. "Sit down," one of them said. "No," Namjoon replied, calm as winter. "We're not here to negotiate." Bang stood slowly. He looked older, heavier. The charisma was still there, but behind it something else, regret, fear, or just exhaustion. "You don't understand what you're doing," he said quietly. "Yes, we do," Yoongi said. "We're finally undoing what you did." "I saved your lives," Bang said. "Do you know what would have happened to you back then if the footage had gone public? You would have been wiped out before you even got started. One bad headline, one scandal." "You knew someone nearly died," Jungkook interrupted, voice shaking. "You watched the video, you saw that Jimin didn't move, you saw us fall apart, and you told us to smile." "You were children," Bang said, "and I protected my children." "You protected your investment," Taehyung snapped, "not us." Bang looked at him. "I didn't want to ruin you." Namjoon stepped forward. "You already did." The lawyer interjected. "There's a path forward here. We've drafted a statement. Jimin's confession has gone viral, but if the rest of you distance yourselves, we can preserve the—" "No," Jimin said, "we go together or not at all." Bang sat back down, his face tightening. "Yu Kyung is going to release everything," Namjoon said. "Every file, every name, every NDA, the file labeled damage control, it's already circulating." "You're not innocent either," one of the PR men said to Namjoon. "None of you are." "Good," Namjoon replied, "then the world will see all of us clearly." The silence was unbearable. Then Bang spoke again, this time softer. "I didn't know it would go this far." "You always do," Yoongi said, "you just didn't care." Back at their temporary apartment, the air was heavy. Everyone had said what needed to be said, but no one felt relief. The world outside was turning faster than they could control it. News outlets were spinning theories, fans were collapsing into factions, former idols were tweeting cryptic regrets, sponsors were vanishing, lawsuits were being drafted. And still the real bomb hadn't dropped yet. Stage 4 was just the beginning. The real explosion would be Stage 5. They didn't know what it was. Only that it was coming. And then it did. At exactly midnight, Yu Kyung uploaded one final file. Not to YouTube. Not to Twitter. To Interpol's whistleblower archive. Public unredacted permanent. The file name, The Idol Protocol. Inside it, full transcripts, email threads, executive directives, internal company chats, legal memos. All of it pointed to one chilling reality. The company had a system. A documented, decades-long protocol for managing scandals, silencing victims, fabricating apologies, paying off reporters, and even coaching trainees on how to cry on camera when accused of wrongdoing. And at the center of it all, BTS. They had been both the victims and the face of the machine. Not just covered up. Constructed. "Look at this," Yoongi whispered, scrolling through the documents. "They planned our public breakdowns, they predicted when we'd fracture." "There's a line here," Hoseok said, voice trembling. "Ensure emotional fatigue is staggered across members to maintain overall functionality." Taehyung stepped back, horrified. "They calculated our trauma." Jimin was shaking. "They knew I was breaking and they kept going." Namjoon stared at the screen. "They didn't just cover up Donghyun, they built an entire machine from his blood." Jungkook didn't speak. He opened a closet, pulled out a suitcase. "I'm going to see him," he said. Namjoon looked up. "Donghyun." Jungkook nodded. "I have to look him in the eye, not as BTS, not as an apology, just as me." Donghyun was waiting in the garden of a small house by the sea. No security, no camera, just him. He didn't look angry anymore. He looked tired. Jungkook approached slowly. "Hey," he said. Donghyun nodded. "I saw the confession," he said. "I saw the protocol," Jungkook replied. "Monsters," Donghyun said. "Us or them?" Jungkook asked. Donghyun looked at him, both. There was silence between them. Then Jungkook said, "I'm sorry I didn't look for you." "I'm sorry I gave up on you first," Donghyun said. They sat for a long time saying nothing else. The wind moved. The world spun. Back in Seoul the headlines had changed. BTS members reveal industry-wide scandal. The idol protocol, a system of abuse. The truth behind the fame. The boys were no longer idols. Not in the traditional sense. They were something else now. Symbols. Warnings. Truth-tellers. And perhaps still in the eyes of some. Heroes. Jimin stood on a rooftop alone that night, the city spread out below him like a fever dream. Taehyung joined him. "You think it'll get better?" Jimin asked. Taehyung shrugged, "Maybe not, but it'll get honest." Jimin smiled weakly, "I think I'd forgotten what that felt like." Behind them the others joined, one by one. No cameras. No fans. No lights. Just them. 6 men who had faced everything the world could throw at them, and chose not to run. Not anymore. And when the sun rose the next morning, it didn't rise on legends. It rose on something rarer. 6 men who had survived the truth. Together.